Hello and welcome back to this video. In this video, we are going to be interacting with files using our Python script. Now, we have already worked with a lot of libraries and concepts in our previous video. So if you are working with a particular concept in Python, you already know that there are some methods and attributes that you pass into the methods to produce a certain result for you. Okay, so now if you want to work with files, there are several methods that you will need to use. Okay, so now some of those methods I am going to list right now. So we are going to work with the open method. We are going to be working with read method, and we are going to be working with write methods. Now these three methods are common to all aspects of file handling, right? Another method that we are going to be looking at is close, right? So after you interact with your files, you have to close your file. But we are going to be working with these 3 to 4 methods. Okay, so now how do you create a file in Python? Now for you to start working with a file, you have to first of all call the open method or open function on the file. So like I've stated in my previous video, another word for function in Python is method. Method is commonly used in Python, and in other languages they use function. So you can say that function is a general term, but method is peculiar to Python programming language, right? So now, if you want to start interacting with your file, the first thing you have to do is that you have to call the open method, okay? Then you have to state the file name and probably the mode that you want to open that file in, right? So for now, we are going to start creating our files and we are going to set them to variables, okay? So I'm going to call this file and I'm going to set it to open. Then I'll open and close my parentheses. And the first argument that this open method takes is your file name. And it must be a string, okay? So I'm going to write it here as a comment. So I'm going to write that the open method takes first the file name as the first argument and then the mode. So what you have here, so I'm going to close this bracket and I'm going to pass in the file name as a string. So I can call it anything. I can call it maybe file dot the file extension. So we know the regular file extension. We have txt files. We even have .py file, which is Python file. We have .js files. We have .png or JPEG for images. We have .mp4 for video files. And we have several file types. We have .pdf, .csv, .json, several types of files that we interact with daily on our computer. So when you write the file name, you write your dot and then you write your file extension. So for this very file, I'm going to create a txt file. So I'm going to write .txt and I'm going to write my comma. And as you can see, Python is already prompting me to add my mode. Okay, so this file says file description or path, then you have the mode, right? So now this mode, you can enter this mode as a string. So you can just enter it as a string and say that you want it to be in read mode or write mode or append mode, right? So we are going to come to that shortly. We are going to explain all the different file modes, okay? So I'm going to, for now, W, that is for write, and that is how you open a file, okay? So now after you open your file, the next thing that you do is that you write the next action that you want to take on that file. So if you want to read that file, then you are going to refer to that file variable that you created and then call the read function on it. Or if you want to write into that file, you are going to refer to that file name that you created and you're going to call the write function or the write method on the file, and then you are going to pass in whatever you are writing into the file, okay? And after you are done with writing your file, the next thing you're going to do is to close the file, okay? So without further ado, let's move forward. So the next thing we are going to do is that we are going to call the write method on this file.txt and what we want to pass into the file. Okay, so I could create another variable and call that for and refer it to this file.write, or I could just call it directly. So since I'm not doing any other thing on that file except for writing the file, so I'm just going to say file.write. So this file is this variable here. So I'm calling the write function on that. So I'm going to type in my write, and then I'll call my write method. So the next thing I'm going to do is pass in the item that I want that file to contain. So I'm going to open and close my string quote because this is a text file. So you can just add regular text or numbers or whatever into the file, or you can even create a string variable or a number variable and pass in into this file. But this write method for a TXT file takes a string. Okay, so I can decide to pass in a string directly. So I can say that I want to just write in this text. This is a file, and then I will save and run. So now if you come to this folder now, you can see now this is file.txt. So I will delete this again. I'll delete it, and I'm going to leave this place. I'm going to open this tab, right, so that you see when the file will be created. So now we have a file here, file.txt. Okay, so if I change this file name to new file.txt and I run this again, you see that a new file will be created, right? So now that is how you can create a file with Python, right? So this is a TXT file and it is actually very straightforward to work with. And after we do this, we can say file.close, right? And that's it, the file closes. Okay, so now this is a basic way to work with Python file. Okay, so assuming now that I want to read the content of this file, right, what I can do is to, the first time I've opened the file, and I'm going to change this W to R, that is read mode. So this time around, I'm going to remove this text that is here, and I'm going to change this method to read, and I'm going to set this file.read method to another variable. So I'm going to call it read is equals file.read. So when you're calling your method, you remember to open and close your parentheses, and then if you want to see the content, then you're going to print that read variable so that you can see it on the screen, right? And then we can now close the file. So right, and I'm going to clear my terminal and run this code again. So now we have the content of that file. So if you come to this new file.txt, you see that this is what we have there. This is a file. Okay, so these are the ways you can interact with your file. And by default, the default read and write method are used for the txt file. Now, if you want to work with a CSV file and a JSON file, they have their own generic write and read methods. Okay, so, and we are going to be treating that in our next video. So this is our first video for this file handling, and what we are just looking at basically is how to interact with the file. So you just know the structure that first of all you open the file, and then if you want to read or write, that is the next function that you're going to call on the file. And then if you want to read, you are going to have to print out the content of that read method that you created, and then close your file. So in our next video, we are going to be working more with our TXT files, how to create new lines, and how to add other variables, maybe dynamically into the file. Subsequently, we'll work with CSV and JSON file. So thank you so much for watching this video, and see you in the next one.